So is it gonna say record on the screen or not on the screen?
We're live.
Are we?
I see a red record.
So it doesn't say record on the screen.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning so I leave more disappointments than I ever.
Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champ AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dayo the Machine. Guys, we are back again this week. We talked about our draft last week. Dayo brought up something that I thought was really important in our last episode, is that we often talk about CeeDee Lamb and Ja'Marr Chase differently when they're really in the same situation. Both of them are in camp. But they're kind of holding in, and so why do we?
Not even in camp. CeeDee's still holding.
Well, that's true. Yeah. No. Like he's reported. He's just not practicing.
I think he's reported. I think maybe one day, but maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So both Ayuk reported not practicing. Ja'Marr Chase reported. It's pretty good. It's really sweet. Yeah.
Why you saying like
the record show?
Why
you saying like that? You sure it's not my bottle? Okay.
No. But no, y'all have thrown me off. So both holding out. Brandon Ayuk reported to camp, not practicing. Ja'Marr Chase reported to camp, not practicing. Also, CeeDee Lamb reported to camp, not practicing. Why do we see these players different when they're in the same situation? Should we be taking into account that they are reported, reporting to camp but not practicing? Like, does this affect their draft capital for you, their draft stock?
So I think a couple different things. I think one reason maybe why up until now anyway, the Chase hold out has not gotten a lot of buzz is because he's 2 years removed from like when his contract is up. So I think the assumption was this, okay, he's going to try to hold out, but he can only do so much because he's still got 2 years left on his deal. Whereas with CeeDee, they really got to get something done now. And so I think both of these situations, though I agree with Dayo, should really be looked at almost the same way. And for me, it does affect ADP. Again, I'm going to kind of go back to that same exercise of thinking where my mind was in 2023 and how I had these guys ranked. And so this idea that just CeeDee Lamb is just way better than all the other wide receivers and is the safest and has the most upside and is a clear wide receiver one, I just don't buy. Can he be the wide receiver one? Yes. Does he belong, where he was drafted based on last year's performance? Yes. But, but so do a lot. I mean, you can make a case for a lot of those guys going in that early mid round one. So for me, like again, unless I'm only doing like a few drafts and I want to have CD shares, there's no reason for me to take that change. Even if they come back like the last week of the preseason, I hate that. I don't like that. I don't like that you missed the entire mini camp, training camp. I don't like the fact that you're like, potentially, I got to worry about if you're in game shape. I don't like to worry about the idea of them having to ease and work you in. Why do I want to have to consider that for my first round pick when I can also draft guys like Tyreek Hill? I can draft guys like Justin Jefferson. I can draft guys like Amon-Ra, who all have upside. We didn't think CeeDee Lamb had this upside last year. Nobody did. Okay. Maybe there was one guy out there who was a CeeDee Lamb truther, but even that guy did not think that he was a surefire lock to be the wide receiver one. CeeDee Lamb was going at the back end of the 12th because nobody could foresee and nobody had a good case for how he could, end the season as the wide receiver one. So by that same right, you got to look at everybody going in that first round like they could potentially end the season as the wide receiver one. So why am I going to take the risk and take the chance of somebody that's holding out? Again, I don't have any issues with people taking them. I have shares, but when I'm drafting now, especially I'm drafting in the main events, like I'll just pass. I mean, there's other guys, but then obviously there gets to a point where they're at the end of the tier that like, CeeDee Lamb falls to the bottom of that tier, I'm definitely gonna take him. I'm not saying like let him fall into the second round or anything, but there are other guys there that I think have just as much upside.
Yeah. So how do you kind of see how these players kind of show up in your personal rankings? I know that you don't really like rankings, but how do you kind of see their situations?
So you kind of have to look at it two ways for me personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it's actually a 3-man issue right now because Brandon Ayuk is in that same boat.
Right.
That's
right.
both CD and Jamar Chase. And it's actually, I'm bringing him up because I'm going to make a point regarding him.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at it in two boats, right? You got to look at the first boat, which I tend to look at most of the time, is how often do I have an opportunity to get shares of a certain player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every draft I've been in thus far, CeeDee Lamb is going top 3. In reality, honestly, it's really more top 2. But you have these one-offs where he goes like 103. Maybe, and I can't, I'm just covering bases, maybe see him go 104. But he's always definitely going in the very front part of the draft. Every single, again, most of the time it's like a 102, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm in a second 2-hole position, when the draft order is set, most likely, especially if C-Mac is taking number 1, I'll probably still press the button on CD. And most people that are drafting right now are still doing that, regardless of the current contract situation. Like, that's just the way it is. So again, for the sake of just having shares of him, because at the end of the day, we always have these discussions about all these players this time of the season or off season, and then season comes along, they sign, and then they end up being who they are. Now, Abby's making a good point as far as, the higher risk of injuries and just kind of getting the flow, but, we'll deal with that when we deal with that. So again, that's one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it is just value, right? And I would think his value is less than CD. I would also think the value is less than Jamar Chase. And then you would think the value is less than Ayuk. All three of those players, the only player where it's actually been shown in drafts is Ayuk. Yeah. He's the only one that's actually lost value because nothing else has changed. At one point, Ayuk was being taken in the second round.
I just saw him go. Shout out to FFPC, was did a live stream with him recently, and Brandon Ayuk went in the 4th round.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So he went from the second round at one point to the 4th round.
Yeah.
While CD has been 102 to 103 all season long.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase has been somewhere within those 7 picks all season long. I've even seen him as early as the first 5 picks.
Yeah.
But again, so it's two ways of looking at it. Now I will say this: I was in a draft recently. It wasn't FFPC, and I had the number 7 pick. And when it came time to pick, I had the option of Chase, Amon-Ra, and Jefferson. And if none of this was going on with Chase, like if we're just strictly looking at just value in the player, I would have taken Chase 10 out of 10 times easily. That's how I value Chase. I've been a Chase fan since he was a rookie. Remember?
I remember that. Yeah.
So I've always just been, a believer in his talent. But this whole end stuff is making me a little nervous. So I didn't go Chase. Yeah. I ended up going Amon-Ra. And I might look back on it and say, damn, I messed up on an opportunity, but I'm just not comfortable right now. And we're getting real close to the season. I want to be as comfortable as I can the closer to the season we get. So
agreed.
Outside of Dak, pretty much every quarterback has gotten their contract. So I don't want to talk about quarterbacks potentially, holding in or anything like that. Dak is going to be there. We know Dak is going to get his money. But let's talk about Trent Williams for a second because he hasn't reported to camp. Should we look at Purdy a little different if Trent Williams, misses a game or two? Because I think he's the best left tackle in the game. But if he's not there, should we somehow, consider, Brock Purdy differently, not having his starting left tackle?
I would say, right? Just having one of the best, if not the best left tackle in the game not be available to you makes your job a lot more difficult, especially if your whole career he's always been an anchor for you. That's what you've known. So, that's an issue. But I think as for fantasy-wise, people aren't targeting Purdy anyways, right? Purdy is one of those last-ditch effort picks or if you just want to double up. I think the person that really is going to have the biggest effect on is actually Kittle, right? Because, if your left tackle is not available, then you're going to probably need to keep the tight ends in more often to block. And we know the 49ers have no issue keeping Kittle in the block. They will. Matter of fact, Kittle embraces the role, right? So with no Trent Williams, and they're going to probably have to pass the ball. Then Kittle, hey, we need you to kind of stay in a little bit longer. And that reduces his route participation. So it does affect that. Now after that, you can maybe say the the receiver routes are going to be a little bit shorter
Yeah.
because he's not going to have as much time to throw.
Mhm.
Then you start looking at the low A-dot players like Debo.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, you can obviously put Kittle in there, but again, we'll see how that goes. Maybe even looking at like the rookie Jacob Cowing,
Mhm.
who might have an opportunity because I'm hearing Ricky Pearsall is still, having a hard time with injuries. So I think that's how it's going to affect the team as a whole. I will say, the longer he's out, the less you can look at the 49ers as, the favorite out of the NFC,
Mhm.
So, there's a lot of different angles you can take with it.
Yeah, I think those are they have a lot of slow developing plays, play action, misdirection that,
Mhm.
really requires some time. So I think it's a big, big hit. Like he's one of those players that they, obviously I think the 49ers are thinking he is their priority one.
Mm-hmm.
We got to make sure we have money next year for Brock Purdy. And okay, let's see if we can make all this work for Ayuk, knowing that we got to take, have those two guys as the priority. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I want to talk about something else. We often talk about the first look and what that means for fantasy football. And for people who play FFPC, typically that Thursday night, week 1 Thursday night game, you can put players into your lineup. And then if they don't produce, you can, move them out by that Sunday and sort of take them out of your lineup. And it
Not
gives
quite.
you a competitive advantage. So
Kind of like that, but not quite. You don't have to put them in your lineup at all.
But you don't have to put them in, but you can
don't-
interchange players.
Well, not even that.
Mhm.
What it really is, you just don't have to set your lineup until Sunday morning.
Right. Okay.
That's really all it is,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but you can go ahead.
And deeper meaning of that, Data does not like to set his lineups. He will literally.
I'll take all my players out.
He doesn't want his opponent to have any type of advantage.
You look at my roster and say
game.
empty from quarterback to defense. I have one defense on my team. It'll still be on my bench. But,
that's literally one of the I remember we're in a couple of joint leagues and be like, don't set the lineup. He's like, don't put our starting lineup in.
So nervous, man.
But it's the most diabolical thing that I've ever heard.
I've been doing it forever, man.
It's the most diabolical thing
honestly,
ever.
It allows you to think about your roster decision a little bit more clearly.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just having your roster just in there. Because I think it's harder to convince yourself to take somebody that's in out and put somebody on the bench. You have to convince yourself with that.
Yeah.
Well, if everybody's just on your bench, then you kind of look at it like DFS. Okay, what play do I think is the best option?
Yeah.
So it's a different way. I've just been doing it for so long,
but let's talk about that first look for a second.
Yeah.
So Kansas City, Baltimore plays on that Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time that I can remember that we get 2 first looks.
Yes.
Where that Friday,
4 teams.
I am glad you brought because I forgot about that.
Yeah,
so there's 4 teams that you can choose from. That Philadelphia Green Bay game is also going to be a first look as well. How do you guys think about first look games when you're drafting, especially when you start to get towards those later rounds?
No, I think that's a great point. So I'm going to give you an example of what not to do, because there's definitely some advantage there. There's definitely some way of gaming the system. Yes, it's week 1, which some people may argue is the most least important week, but still all points matter, all W's matter. And you want to get off to a hot start, But this is how you don't do it. So I was in a main event recently. Shout out Theo. Shout out Scott Barrett.
Theo, Scott.
Yeah. And there was, team 3 in this draft just really took that first look to heart and just smashed those 4 teams. So I'm gonna read off his draft. I know, bear with me for a little bit. So he starts off, okay. Nothing egregious. Breece Hall comes back, gets Kyron Williams, Chris Olave, George Kittle, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so that's where we start. Patrick Mahomes, David Montgomery, Jayden Reed. But then, so he took Patrick Mahomes in the 5th round. Okay, already that's, okay, maybe let's just call that ADP. In the 8th round, he then takes Jordan Love, another first look player. So you got 5th round Patrick Mahomes, then takes 8th round Jordan Love. Then he comes back in the 12th round and drafts Isaiah Likely. Okay. Then he comes back in the 14th. No, it says tight end 3. Okay. Then he comes back in the 14th round, takes Justin Tucker, another first look. 15th round, Rashad Bateman. 16th round, Harrison Buckner. 17th round, Jake Elliott.
Kicker?
3 kickers.
3 kickers.
3 kickers.
He took 3 kickers.
Oh, yeah.
Not done yet. Then he took Cincinnati defense, but then in the 20th round, finished it out with the Green Bay defense. So that's how I don't want to do my first look. I don't want to draft based on the first look. I feel like, you don't, I don't want to be too aggressive. If I miss out on some player who goes off on Thursday, who cares? Like, because there's going to be players that are going to go off weeks 1 through 17.
Mhm.
And just because a guy goes off and you get off to a good start, we've all been there. Thursday night game, your opponent has a guy who puts up 25, you feeling sick until Sunday, and then Sunday, your team amassed enough points and you just blow the other guy out of the water. So never want to overreact. Those drafts too, there's another component of that. There will be drafts that take place during those games, after those games, leading all the way up to Sunday. And in fact, I think they even probably have a few Sunday morning drafts.
They do.
So people are going to overreact to everything. And the fact that we have now 4 games, I can't wait to watch these games. I feel like you got to watch these games so closely because sometimes like all these questionable situations, we see it. Like it's very obvious. Like, oh, they're going to use Saquon Barkley like this. Okay. He's getting 4 or 5 targets like that are actually like, scheme targets. They're not using the tush push. He got like three chances, on one drive at the goal line. Certain things are going to be, I think, a little bit more telling so that like, okay, yeah, it does warrant their ADP rising. But certain other things are going to be like Xavier Worthy comes out and goes 3 for 70 because he caught like a 50-yard touchdown. I'm not going to like overreact to that. I'm not going to like say, oh, okay, now I got to like draft Xavier Worthy in the 5th round and move him up like 4 or 5 rounds in ADP.
I mean, it's slightly egregious, but I don't have a problem with it, right? I mean, that drafter, and I'm going back to the draft you're just speaking of, they're basically just saying they're 100% committed to winning week 1, right? They're just saying, like, at the end of the day, I'm going to at least guarantee week 1. And then, you remember, FFPC, the regular season is, 11 weeks?
Yeah.
12 or something? So, it's like college football. Every week counts. One loss can really hurt you. I mean, not really. If you play FFPC, you can have a losing record and make the playoffs. But still, just every week is so valuable.
Yeah.
And that person just is believing. See, that person is telling me 2 things. Number one, again, they really badly want to win week 1, and they want to almost guarantee because they guarantee the quarterback, kicker, I guess defense.
They got 3
and
kickers.
Receivers.
Yeah, I mean that's
so about 4 positions they want to guarantee, right? But the number 2, that person's probably somebody that's active on the wire, right? They're probably going to be dropping players all throughout the season. They're not keeping 3 kickers in the week 2. Matter of fact, they're probably going to see because all 3 of those kickers are first little kickers.
Yeah,
whoever's the good one, they're just going to probably drop the other 2,
yeah.
which is crazy because those are damn good kickers.
I know.
So
we thought about
somebody's
that
gonna have a gift on the waiver wire.
That's exactly what we said in the draft.
Yeah, somebody's gonna have a gift on the waiver wire at some point. The Mahomes and Love thing I think is crazy, but again, they just want to guarantee that they. But I think there's an advantage to it. Again, kind of the points I was just making. So few weeks. It gives you and we can look at it on one end as far as which players are going to do great and you're going to put them in the lineup. But I tend to look at it on the other side of the spectrum, like what players do I expect to do well but ended up busting and it saved me. Like what if Barkley's a typical late first round, early second round. What if he has like 12 carries, 58 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 catches or something?
You sit on the bench.
Or even worse, gets hurt, right? Then you're like, okay, like, let me even say that differently. What if he has like 17 carries, 75 yards, and gets ankle injury, but then they're blowing him out, so they don't even put him back. So he has great usage. You probably could say, man, he probably would have had a good game if they were being competitive. And you're like, great, but I don't want to play you this week. So I'm like, all right, I can bench you this week, but then next week I'll feel more comfortable.
And his ADP also drops.
And I mean, there's a lot of different things. So the first look thing, I'm a proponent of it for sure. I don't go too crazy with it. I like to take those players at their ADPs. It's just that if there's like a tiebreaker, I'll give that side the edge. So
well, let's talk about one other draft.
Oh, by the way, one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
One more point about that.
Mm-hmm.
Not every season. I mean, first of all, there's the first season where it's 2 games, so it's 4 teams. But not every season where both teams have a lot of fantasy options throughout. But Green Bay, Philly, Chiefs, and Ravens, that's like 30% of fantasy valuable players.
And
right
Chiefs,
there.
And the Chiefs and Packers wide receivers just been going late in drafts. So, and I haven't even really been thinking about it, but all the Dontavian Wicks and some of the Christian Watson shares that I have, gonna be real sick if Jayden Reed goes off because I got very, very little Jayden Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about another draft strategy. How early do you guys want to pick up defenses and kickers? In our listener league, I think Dayo picked the first defense.
The first defense?
The first defense with
Did
Baltimore.
I?
I think
Maybe.
Baltimore in the 14th round.
Okay.
How early do you typically want to pick up these defenses, especially? I mean, like I know that like if you can pick up an elite defense and kind of ride that elite defense, like when we like when we saw the Cowboys putting up so many touchdowns, like how important is picking up an elite defense when you draft them like this?
Yeah, I feel like things have changed. I don't necessarily know that there's like truly a number of elite defenses. I do have kind of a handful of defenses that I feel like, okay, they have the potential and I target those. So like I'm very concentrated in my defenses. And that's kind of what I mean, that's how I play at most positions, but specifically defense. So I just take large swings. If I miss, maybe it hurts quite a bit. But if you hit, then you end up with like, a couple years ago, like the Patriots defense where they just won me leagues. They just won me leagues. So I will definitely look like if the Jets fall to me 14th, 15th round and I'm really liking my build and I feel like there's not a player on the board that like I absolutely must have or like I'm really like want to be aggressive about or really need for this build, I will oftentimes reach for the Jets. Pittsburgh has kind of been my like.
That's actually what you did in this draft.
Yeah, Pittsburgh has been kind of my fail safe where there's like a run of these sort of kind of elite defenses, and I just like the start to their season. I think I try to consider that. We don't know how good some of these teams are going to be, but we can all we can do is try to guess. And I feel like their first 3 to 4 games, there may be some potential there, but they also have good pass rusher. Watt is a beast. So any team that can have a good pass rush and a decent secondary can put other teams in positions because all you need is a pick six. You can be a terrible defense and get a pick six. And none of us know, Dayo always mentions, none of us know how this new kickoff rule is going to turn out.
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah. So like, if there's a team that's like super good at that, like none of us are going to know because it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to equate to like,
somebody's going to be good at it too.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to figure it out.
Somebody's going to have something very unique, and I'm going to be like very intrigued.
Try to copy it and
yeah. But I'm going to be very intrigued because like whatever team like seems like they just figured it out. Like, they may not have scored a touchdown, but like maybe they like had like, really, really good kickoff returns. I'm going to keep that in mind because
they'll score a touchdown, right? Because if you pass that first wave, nobody's there to stop you.
Yeah.
That's something that scares me. Your safety is your kicker. Literally just get past that wave.
Yeah. I know you start getting these rugby kickers. You're probably gonna start seeing that soon. But the other thing too is like, or the other defenses that I like a lot of later defenses too. Like Philadelphia's fallen.
First look defense.
And it's a first look defense. Who cares who they're playing? You kind of brought this up last year, I think, with Detroit Lions. I think Detroit Lions scored a touchdown last year
against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I specifically remember I was like, man, you are not picking the Detroit Lions. Like,
hey man, it can happen.
That's exactly what you said. That shit happened. But actually that defense has some potential, and you get Big Fangio back. So like if they actually like show up this year, like there was a lot of disarray there last year. I mean, when your defensive coordinator is like not good, and then you switch to another defensive coordinator who's actually worse, like to me, like that's gonna make a significant difference. Like you can't just have good defensive players and then like have a good defense. Like
who's the defensive coordinator? Matt Patricia?
He was the second one. I forget who their first one was.
The first one was the coach of the Cardinals, Jonathan Gannon.
No. But he left last year. So there was a.
Oh, they had two DCs last year.
Yeah, they had two DCs last year. Yeah, they had two DCs last year. Patricia came in at the back end. But yeah, I like Seattle. I like Philly and Cincy. I think kind of has a decent start, but really it's just like it's Jets. If I can get Jets, if I can't get the Jets, Pittsburgh. I'm starting to come on to Philadelphia, Seattle, and then you brought up the Texans too. So like I'm probably gonna start getting on them too as well.
Sir.
So you got a number of them. You don't really got to reach if you don't want to.
So for me,
but let's also remember too, FFPC doesn't really incentivize low scoring.
Boy, I was about to say that.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Stole the whole thunder. Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, you should be. Damn. You should be cognizant of the scoring for your defense in your leagues, right? I mean, you gotta always understand. We're not just talking to people that play FFPC. We're talking about people that play fantasy football. Yeah. Be understanding of how the defensive scoring is for your league. Because specifically in FFPC, the points scored against your defense is not that serious. Yeah. Like it's minimal. It's like, either they let them don't score any points or they score between like 1 in 10
Yeah.
or something, and then over 10 is all the same.
Yeah.
So if a team that scored 12 points, same thing the team that scored, or a team that had 12 points scored against them gets the same points as a team that has 50 points scored against them, right?
Yeah.
So that doesn't matter. So what's valuable in FFPC is the turnovers, the sacks, the touchdowns, the return. That's where the value is. So don't be afraid to pick or play defenses that are going against high flying offenses because the amount of points that are scored against them doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. So now with that being said, me as far as defenses, so I usually when I'm picking my defense in drafts, historically I usually don't even care. I may look at, if we're not FFPC, I may look at the first week matchup, right? Because really I'm just trying to get through that first week. With the first look at
I'm a streamer,
exactly. And I'm a big advocate. Probably my number one priority in all fantasy seasons is to locate that defense. There's always in my mind that defense. A defense that has come out the blue every year. That's taken late. That, like you were saying, the Patriots that year. The Cowboys that year. These defenses that are just on the waiver wire and people have to see it a few times before they believe it. I want to be the first one to believe it. And I'll take stabs on a couple of them, and like once I secure that, then I just ride, ride that defense the season through. So I mean, it's like a mad dash for me to kind of figure out that defense. But that defense can be very, very valuable.
Let's go back to the offense for a second. This last week, I think we saw a lot of success. I know it's preseason, but we saw a lot of success with rookie quarterbacks. First rookie quarterback coming off the board is typically Jayden Daniels, and then we see Caleb. Are we undervaluing rookie quarterbacks, and should we consider them more the way that we kind of consider rookie receivers more than we have in the future? Because we see some of these rookie receivers, like Marvin Harrison, go in the second round. He was going in the early second round, I think, at the beginning of the draft season. Should we start to consider moving up some of these rookie quarterbacks given the success we've seen so far in the preseason? Specifically, again, we saw Jayden Daniels running, a rushing touchdown last week. Caleb Williams rushing touchdown. Even my boy, Bo Nix, didn't look bad. Right. So we're seeing some of these rookie quarterbacks look pretty good. Should we start to consider moving some of these rookies up the board, especially when we start talking about, like Dak may not, Dak is going to have CD. CD is going to be there week one, but that chemistry may not be there. Brock Purdy may not have his left tackle. That may affect his play. Should we start moving some of these rookie quarterbacks up?
No.
Keep them there?
No
faith. They're fine where they are.
It's not necessarily them. It's just quarterback is deep, you know? And these are not only are they unknown, they're in unknown situations with new coordinators, new coaches, new personnel. And it's one thing if you're talking about best ball. It's another thing when you're talking about redraft. This is why I draft multiple quarterbacks because I have drafted monster teams. Absolute monster teams, and have been taken down by bad quarterback play. Quarterbacks that consensus-wise were top 7, top 8, and have just been destroyed. I will not be a slave to bad quarterback play. That's why last year I was not a slave to Patrick Mahomes. I was not. I had no issue starting other guys ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Starting Jordan Love ahead of Patrick Mahomes. CJ Stroud ahead of Patrick Mahomes. It was not even a question to me. It's a quarterback position. They scored lots of points. And in the right matchup, the right system, and the right sort of kind of scenarios, certain quarterbacks are going to be better than others. So when I look and hear, my highest on quarterback is Jayden Daniels right now. Okay. But that's because he was going double-digit rounds. Now he's not. And I talked about it. I've been talking about it, for a couple of weeks now, starting to see Joe Burrow fall. So if you're asking me 8th round Jayden Daniels versus 10th round Joe Burrow, well, now I'm a flip-flop. Give me Joe Burrow. And even Joe Burrow, I'm going to pair with somebody. So I think, I don't necessarily know that you need to be super aggressive. I get if you haven't been in on Jayden Daniels, you don't have Jayden Daniels shares and you draft him in the 8th round. I'd probably be doing the same thing. Those are the guys you want to have shares of. But now I'm switching my kind of, focus to Joe Burrow. I'm switching my focus to Caleb Williams. So I don't necessarily feel a need to I got to draft a certain quarterback, and definitely not the rookie quarterbacks if their ADPs are rising.
I think they're valued where they should be. They're still unknowns. And, I mean, we talked about this weeks ago. I guess we've already forgotten, but preseason play, don't put too much stock in preseason play. Nobody's game planning for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You know
everything's
who?
vanilla.
Yeah, you know who balled out last year, right?
Who?
Kenny Pickett and the Steelers. Remember that? They were balling out. Everybody was super excited. This was the year that this offense was going to take flight. And what happened to that?
Mm.
I mean, not only did they like not live up to expectations, I mean, they were trash. I mean, they were really, really bad.
Yeah, so I'm not going to see how they played in the preseason. I mean, again, they're value where they should be. I don't think there's ever been a season that I can think of where two rookie quarterbacks were being taken as high as what Daniels and Caleb are taking now. I don't think Bo Nix offers any fantasy value unless he really just hits his highest of potential. Yeah. Right. McCarthy would have probably been, in my opinion, the third option as far as fantasy because of his running ability, and he's out the window now. I don't think you're getting anything at all out of Drake May. And Penix, I don't know what to make of Penix, right? Like, if he's not going to play, I'm either thinking he's just not going to play and he's just like break glass option, or they got something up their sleeve and Cousins might be gone and Penix might be the guy week one. Like, I could see that being played out so many ways. But again, as far as the rookie quarterback, it's just two guys that I was seeing. Those guys are being taken, like Abby said, between rounds 9 and 13. Mm-hmm. So they're being taken as like the 12 to 15 quarterback. So, I don't think we're at a point. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point really, because obviously draft season ends before the beginning of the season. But I don't think we're going to get to a point where their values actually shoot up. I don't think there's nothing they can show us, or anything that can, unless injuries, of course. Yeah. Dak, Burrow, A. Richardson, gets hurt, torn her ACL, then you got to do what you got to do.
All right. So we normally follow the Coach Speak account that's on X, and we, put that inside our text message thread, and we, talk about Coach Speak and trying to figure out what's real and what's not. And so, this week we were kind of talking about this term of co-starters, and there are a few teams where the coaches have kind of talked about having co-starters. Miami, he has. Miami, McDaniel did talk about A-Chain and Mostert being co-starters. We saw the same thing with Pollard and Tajay Spears. And I think Detroit might have said the same thing when it came to Gibbs and David Montgomery, that they're going to be splitting time and calling them co-starters. What do you guys think about that term? Dayo, I know you saw it. You pulled it up in the text message thread. So it is a thing that coaches are talking about. What do you think about the idea of being a co-starter? And is that a sign that you need to run away from that team?
I don't think that's real, man. I don't think it's real.
All right.
I don't. Again, the depth charts are not real because the teams are not creating them. It's the social media team or the media team for the team that's creating it. They have some reason with how they're created, because they're watching practices, right? They've seen preseason game. They're watching who's going out there, right? So they're making it off of something, right? But I don't think the teams are saying these are their starters. Now, you tell people by your actions more than your words. So again, they're playing certain guys like starters. So it is what it is. But at the end of the day, when week one comes, one guy is going to go out there, right? Like I don't see these teams saying, "Oh, we got these guys as co-star. Both of y'all go out there." There's only 11 guys on the field at a time, and it is what it is. Now the question really is more so who's going to play more, right? Or who's going to get the more valuable touches, and that's to TBD, or you have to kind of make an educated guess. But that co-star thing, man, that's not important, man. It's really just saying, look, we are accepting that this is a running back by committee, and we're just trying to not hurt anybody's feelings because, they're going to be valuable to us.
Co-star?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It really, to me, is just another way of saying like running back by committee, which is pretty much what the league is. Running backs are devalued. You don't really see a lot of workhorse backs. I think Derrick Henry had the most carries last year.
Did he?
I think so. And you saw what type of season that resulted in from a statistical standpoint. So I don't know. Yeah, to me, some of these situations, what I'm trying to figure out is, and what I think is more important is, what is the kind of mindset of the offensive coordinator and the head coach as far as, how do they utilize the running back room. Some people like utilizing one primary back, you know, and for those teams that like where they're saying that there's co-starters and that, you know, we're going to go hot hand approach. Those are the teams that like, okay, I truly consider ambiguous and that I want to attack because those guys traditionally use one starter. So one of these guys is going to emerge. Whereas there are other offensive coordinators and head coaches that do use running back by committees. They do use multiple backs. So we should anticipate that and we should see them as co-starters. Arthur Smith, perfect example. Like I'm not expecting Jaylen Warren to jump and be the primary back. I'm not expecting Najee Harris to like be this workhorse back. And I am expecting to see Cordell Patterson. So things like that, I'm not necessarily like taking stabs at because I just think that their ceiling is going to be, you know, capped. So that's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, Derrick Henry did have the most attempts last year. 280.
So, Chris, what do you think about like when you hear co-stars? Because you brought up the subject, right? It's a thing to you. So when you hear it, what does it do? Like, what does that tell you?
It makes me think about the offenses, and just like Abby said, like it makes me want to like move away or sort of lower the value of those running backs.
Both of them.
Both of them.
So it depresses both of their value, basically.
Yeah. Like I cannot click the button on someone like Jahmyr Gibbs in the second round when his coach is calling.
And A-Chain too, you couldn't do it.
I can't do it with A-Chain either.
Okay.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing is like, so they were co-starters last year and Jahmyr Gibbs still played pretty well.
Yeah, but
David
enough to
Montgomery
draft him in the second round?
Well, if he was a rookie, if they're saying his role is going to expand, that's the thing that we can't predict.
Yeah, but if the idea is that, you know, like Montgomery is still going to get maybe some goal line work, still going to get significant carries. I mean, I don't know if I can push the button.
What about somebody like Tyjae Spears and
Pollard?
And Pollard, they're both already ranked pretty. These guys like 9th, 10th round picks.
They're ranked appropriately.
Are you saying you would lower them even more?
No. They're ranked appropriately.
Okay.
We should look at Detroit's offense, or we should look at Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs the same way.
Well, if they use them like the Saints of like 2020s, you know, or 2020, where Kamara, or even Kamara and I think it was Ingram. Yeah, like both really kind of had value. You know, one is seeing a lot of like the passing down work. Like,
but wasn't Kamara going to like the first round during that time?
Not his rookie year, but like after that he was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like if another guy's getting goal line work and I'm drafting him in, I want my first round running backs to be bell cows, high quality like carries, like not like on a 25, and then like another guy comes in.
Well, he gets some goal line.
Yeah, he does.
But it's a tough. I get it. It's not the most confident pick in the world.
Yeah. So let's talk about tight ends for a second, because we haven't talked about tight ends in a while since our episode. I want to pull back up the tight end rankings.
Oh, I gotta change this.
Yeah.
This needs to be adjusted.
How so?
Well, I gotta take Dennis.
Well, I remember somebody on social media saying they wanted you to talk about your Ingram pick. Was that the pick they were questioning?
Yeah, y'all kind of got me on Ingram. I'm probably gonna move him back down as well.
Where would you move him?
I'd probably move him definitely below.
He better not be below Kincaid.
Andrews. Actually, it's one big tier.
Yeah.
Ignore the numbers. It's just a tier.
Yeah. I mean, I'd put Laporta at the top of that tier. Maybe.
I don't even know that Laporta needs to be at the top of that tier. Like it's
not Andrews. Actually, I'd put at the top of that tier. Personally.
You could put McBride. We really don't know. Like if Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison could open up things for Trey McBride. Could make his life easier. Could make him a lot more efficient. Could open things up in the red zone for him. Like we don't know. Like he last year he demanded targets and got targets. And was effective with those targets. And that was not his rookie year, but that was like his breakout year, his second year. Now he's going into his third year. So. And we don't know, Mark Andrews is the Mark Andrews of old. And they, utilize him the same way. Like he's right back into that conversation. And he was kind of trending that way last year before he got injured. The reason I have Ingram up here is mostly because I had was maybe buying a little bit more into the idea that they're gonna like expand his route tree to go downfield a little bit more because he was just wildly inefficient last year.
Yeah.
Like to have that many receptions and that few yards to me is like, it's probably a red flag.
Yeah.
I would assume if you like look back in history, from an analytical standpoint, at people who were that inefficient, yards per reception, probably the following year I'm assuming they probably didn't do that well. But I'll buy into the idea of maybe they expanded a little bit more because he is athletic. Like you watch him, he just looks he looks athletic. He looks like an athletic freak. He's not out there to block.
So I kind of see these first two tiers as tight ends that can finish as tight end one, right?
Yeah.
And then everybody after that, I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously anyone could have a breakout season and finish as tight end one.
Yeah.
When I say that in my mind, I think that a guy like Jake Ferguson should be in that second tier. Like I honestly think Jake Ferguson is going to have a better season than Kincaid.
He cannot finish as a tight end one with CeeDee Lamb on his team. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, he can.
No, he cannot.
Or maybe CeeDee Lamb doesn't have the season that we think that he's going to have, especially if he comes back, he's out of shape, he's a little rusty.
If Jake Ferguson finishes as a tight end, and I do like Jake Ferguson, but if he finishes as the tight end one, that means two things happen. CeeDee Lamb got hurt and injured, and the rest of the tight end board got hurt. Like all of them got hurt.
No.
Yes, there's no way. Like you need those two things to happen.
No, like again, we want our tight end ones to finish top two on the team.
Yeah.
In targets, and are you telling me Jake Ferguson can't finish?
He had a good stretch in the playoffs.
You said finishes the tight end one.
Yeah.
If you're telling me he finishes as a tight end one, I think he's gonna finish as tight end one regardless. But if you said finishes as the tight end overall number one.
Yes, the tight end number one overall.
I can see it.
You better go to Vegas.
I can see it because I think if he increases his touchdowns, I think that's really all he needs to do. Just increase his touchdown. And again, in the playoffs, I think there was games. I think it was last year. Last year only had one game against the Packers, but maybe the year before, I think there was a game because we played the playoff challenge where Ferguson, I think, was the number one tight end.
I think he was the number one tight end.
He had one of those like freak, like 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and again, to Chris's point, if he ends up being the second target on that team, I mean, which is up for debate at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see looking at the whole list, the only tight end that has no competition is maybe Kelsey, and he actually has. I can't even say that anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like McBride has competition. Kincaid has. Maybe Kincaid is the one that doesn't have competition. Maybe he's the only one, but every other tight end that was on that list has somebody that could be considered as far as being the highest target share for that team. So I don't think it's out of the realm. I mean, I don't know, Chris. That's the problem you have with his tight end rankings?
I mean, that's my biggest problem is that I just think Jake Ferguson.
So if he would have drew that line just below Ferguson instead of above Ferguson, you would have been fine. Or you're saying he should have been above some of those players that are on that list?
I think.
And go and put it back up so people can.
Oh yeah, so let's go through it again. Like I think Kelsey should be number one. I could see Laporta being number 2, and then at that point I'd put Mark Andrews, just because I don't see a lot of tight ends as alpha tight ends. I see after last year's offseason, I see him as an alpha tight end, like where like he was telling Lamar, "Hey, get me the ball." Like all right, like I'm done with this shit. Get me the ball, right? Like not many tight ends can really command the ball that way.
Okay,
Mark Andrews is that. I don't see that in Laporta yet. I just see the talent in Laporta. McBride, I think, might be a little fluky. Evan Ingram, I mean, I just see him as a receiver. And I love tight ends.
I'll say McBride is a beast.
He is. I just don't know if he can duplicate that again on that offense. And then I see Jake Ferguson right there in the mix.
Okay.
So, I mean,
you know what would be a great exercise?
What?
Show producer Chris. If you took all of Abby's rankings and like re-ranked them according to like edit them the way they should be. You should do that. We're gonna convince you to do that all week.
Well, I'll tell you who wouldn't be on this list.
Who?
Hayden Hurst would be at 20. I don't know. I don't know what is with you and Hayden Hurst.
I gotta move up Zach Ertz.
Hayden Hurst.
I gotta move up Zach Ertz. I gotta move up Theo Johnson.
Juwan Johnson came off of PUP today.
He's already at 19.
Yeah, he should probably go higher in my opinion.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like a 40-point game last year at the end of the season?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I got to move down Lucas Kroll.
What's up with TJ Hawkinson though? Like, is he coming back? And when is he coming
This
back?
is the thing about TJ Hawkinson is that, like, when I draft a player like TJ Hawkinson, I understand that he's just going to sit on the bench. If he sits on the bench for 6-7 weeks, I don't care. Like, he was the tight end one last year before he got hurt. Like, he was the tight end one last year.
Right.
Points per game. So,
but we're not getting points for what he did last year. We're getting points for what he can do.
But
this
even
year.
before last year, he still balled out. So it's not as if like
no, I mean, but that was pre-injury. Now we got to talk about because for him to come back now, he's literally coming back right off of injury. It's not like he's back from injury. He's at camp. You know, he's not like a Tank Dell.
Yeah.
Where he got hurt.
Yeah.
He's been able to rehab.
Yeah.
Now he's practicing with the team. Now he's ready to go. When he comes back, it means he just came off the mend.
Yeah, and he'll sit on the bench. And when he's
you see it,
like he's a tight end coming off of ACL. Those guys I don't necessarily like really
not too worried about.
No.
Okay. By the way, Jake Ferguson gave you a 42 point.
That's what I'm saying
against Green Bay.
Okay.
No, that was talking about Juwan Johnson. But yeah, Ferguson, he can have those if he just increases his touchdowns. Because I think he can have the target. I think he has just the right amount of target share. Even if a wide receiver 2, you know,
I like Ferguson.
Shows up. I think he can still have that target.
He's
share.
probably one of the best values out of all of them too.
Right. So look, I'm just going to go through his targets. I'm going to actually start from the playoffs and work our way back up the roster because I think that's, you know, recency bias.
You could probably stop at like week 10, 11 because that's when he was like kind of still seeing like only like 50% of the snap share, and then towards the back end.
Well, go ahead. Just go ahead and say them.
All right. So that playoff game against Green Bay, 12 targets, 10 catches.
Great.
All right. Week 18, wind it down a little bit. 6 targets, 6 catches.
A little bit. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and then I guess week 18, you're getting prepared for the playoffs. All right. Week 17, 6 targets, 6 targets, 4 catches. Week 16, 8 targets, 4 catches.
Respectable.
Week 15, 8 targets, 6 catches.
Okay.
Week 14, 8 targets, 5 catches. He's hovering right there around 8 targets again. Week 13. I mean, like,
why you stop there? What happened week 12?
Week 12, yeah, like 3 targets, 1 catch.
Yeah, but he definitely
I'm not
come up on that.
Well, look, every time somebody tries to make an argument, you try to like you
boys ain't gonna hurt their argument. What you talking about, man? It doesn't. You gotta just nicely where you know.
Well, then we can keep going. The week before that,
stop there.
I mean, I've said that I'm going up the board. I mean, like it's still an entertaining podcast. Like I got to entertain the people. What I'm saying is there are not many tight ends who are garnering that many targets.
You know who? You know who is?
Who?
The tight ends that are ranked ahead of him. He's not the only one getting those targets. Is what I'm saying.
I'm not saying that he is. All right, let's go to Trey McBride for a second. I know that he finished strong.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but
remember, Zach Ertz was like playing before. Once Zach Ertz got injured and was out, that's when he like started seeing his full-time role. Yeah,
but he got hurt a long time ago. I mean,
he got hurt like around week what was it? Week 4? I think like around week 4. And then they also had the that's also when Kyler Murray wasn't playing, and I think they had Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs was playing the first
early,
week. So it was. I mean,
yeah. But the thing is, his situation is going to change because we got Marvin Harrison there, a bit more talent in a receiver room. But still, week 18, 6 targets. Week 17, 7 targets. Week 16, 8 targets. Week 15, 11 targets. That's nice. Week 13, 9, 12, 9, 11, 7 targets, right? And then 9 targets week 10. So, like, he's hovering around those same numbers. But don't forget, he didn't have much like competition for targets during that time. Now Marvin Harrison is there.
But this is also the first year Kyler Murray come back off the ACL, new offensive system. I mean, the passing volume could just increase, or they could say, okay, you know, Kyler Murray's coming back from injury. Now we can actually open up the offense. I mean, a lot of things. What I'm saying is a lot of things can happen. You know, I would not downplay or reduce and put kind of in a negative light Trey McBride to like prop up Jake Ferguson is what I'm saying.
No,
don't try to use your lawyer tactics.
No. I just think that we should consider them.
You're trying to lawyer us. You're trying to lawyer us.
No, like what I'm saying is that in your rankings you have Trey McBride as number 3, but Jake Ferguson number 8, and they have around the same numbers around that same time.
I think y'all kind of splitting hairs, man.
We are a little bit
all top, not all
with the
tight
situation ends that hasn't gotten worse. So I don't know.
I
hear you.
think
I
the
hear you.
biggest argument is just you can maybe say they should probably be in a more grouped up tier
Well, that's
instead of being separated as much as it is. But I don't have a problem.
that
with
was
the
the
ranking.
argument I was making.
the
Like,
ranking-
That's what I was saying. Just take the line and
But look,
just take the line away from
the rankings
know.
are the rankings, but I have more Jake Ferguson than I do Trey McBride just because he's a better value.
yeah, but you can
I think you need to add Johnny Munt to that list
Nah.
and Kobe Parkinson.
I'll take Dennis Allen off the list, but I'm not adding Kobe Parkinson just out of spite.
Yeah.
And I need to take Chig O'Connell off the list or just cut my list shorter.
Who?
Chig.
Oh, you don't like him?
I just don't I just don't want to draft him. Like I don't even want to have him taking up a roster
So
spot.
you would literally take Mallory over Chig?
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Because
Mallory might not
in
even
best ball,
be-
it depends. In best ball, probably not. But in redraft, yeah, I'm taking because Mallory has a potential to.
I got
I know that you rotate tight ends, but he has a potential to
You still leaving Krul on your list? You know what's crazy about the Broncos?
He's probably coming off.
The starter might not even be Dosage or Krul. It might be freaking Troutman.
Well, Troutman plays a lot of blocking snaps, but
I'm just saying he might be the
starter.
starter. He might not be the receiving option, but he might be the starter. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Dalton Schultz at 26. I mean, I know that there's a lot of competition.
Josh and Schultz should not be drafted.
Look again,
unless injuries happen.
Man, but you don't think he should be drafted at all?
This is a redraft rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you have to start these players. Forget about what he finishes at as he may finish as like a tight end 17, but that doesn't matter. If you draft him and you start him and he gives you a 0, then you put him on the bench and he scores 16 points. That actually is a negative for your team. That hurts you. I think that's something that we don't really even talk about really in redraft leagues, where if you draft players who you can't accurately start and predict, and you start them incorrectly and you sit them incorrectly, that is a negative EV. That is a negative value towards your team. That is something that actually I think hurts you more than helps you, regardless of if they finish better than their ADP.
Okay.
All right, guys. I think that's the episode this week, man. Anything? Any sleepers you want to add to the pod?
We talked about Carson Steele, and I think everybody's kind of figured that one out. Diami Brown with the Commanders. I don't know if I brought his name up last week, but if I didn't, look at him. He might have just taken over the wide receiver 2 slot for the Commanders. Darius Slayton. He might have overtaken Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah.
Which means he's in their wide receiver 3 sets. But yeah, not much this week. Didn't really get much from
I got
preseason.
a couple.
All right.
Still in on Luke McCaffrey.
Why?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't get
still
that.
in on Luke McCaffrey. Because all I'm hearing is how terrible that room is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I don't know what's going on in camp. Maybe he doesn't see the field at all. But there were some good camp reports coming in beforehand. And if he's playing a slot role,
the problem is he's not going to give you any true fantasy value.
That I don't know.
He'll be one of those, you're in a pinch.
Yeah.
You need to play somebody because everybody's injured. He'll give you points, but he's not going to win you anything.
The other one is Cam Akers.
Yeah, we talked about
about Cam Akers, but I still think people are not realizing, how much potential he could potentially have. And then, yes, I think that's all I got. So that's all I got.
Yeah.
That's all we got. Short sleeper list from Dayo this week.
I mean, nothing happened this week.
Man, how much you want him to give him?
All right.
Yeah, nothing happened.
Normally he gives us a list
people
of
already
10 to 12
Go
people.
look back at the old pods. He's like, everybody that's a hot name right now, we gave out.
Yeah, we've been on it'd be weird if somebody just came out the blue now.
Yeah.
Bro, we've been in camp for 4 weeks. Everybody is what they are.
All right.
Oh, wait. I was gonna say Justin Ross.
What?
I'm gonna say Justin Ross.
Who?
No, but we're not going back to this again.
No, just
Ross? Okay.
Just pick him because he's on a great offense. They keep rotating him in with the starters. If an injury occurs, he's gonna I think Sky Moore is out the building.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
I guess if you want to,
that was a wasted draft, man.
and that same vein,
Get too early.
John Mechie, because he might get a little.
He looked really good.
Yeah.
I mean, just really what I'm saying, these players on these high scoring offenses
Yeah.
that are like wide receiver 4s now, if an injury occurs, they become wide receiver 3, and then they have all this value immediately. And you always want to piece those offenses.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it for this week. Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.
I said, God, give me a warning. Please take me for the morning, so I leave more disappointments than I ever will appointments. Give a fuck about your feelings, rub it in. This your ointment can't depend on the oinker. Find your pick in the blanket, find a stick through your